Hello, welcome to PubShorts episode 37. The first cut is the deepest, even though it is a playful take on a story. These news stories that we are covering are not so playful. They are negative in terms of all the news coming out of the Trump administration. But I have to introduce myself. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the innovation officer at Trinca and Inago. And I have with me Tony. Tony, hi.
Hi, KK. I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm VP for partnerships here at Nago. I look after our relationships with mostly with academic publishers, but also deal with research institutions and in some of the universities as well. And KK, can I just say how much I like your shirt?
Thank you.
What a great shirt. Very cool.
It's a traditional, if I'm not mistaken, Peruvian shirt, but it was given to me by my friend. I still have to find the name for it, Tony. So thank you for it. And your
Shirt.
shirt.
Cool shirt.
All right. So
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 use
Tony,
that.
what is Pub Shots and how can people subscribe to the channel?
So PubShots is a regular podcast that KK and I record where we discuss how technology is being used within academic publishing. And we look at all sorts of different topics relating to how the impact on research as well. So you can find PubShots on LinkedIn. You also find us on YouTube. You just search for our channel on YouTube and share and click on the link and share with your colleagues.
Right, and this episode is titled after the famous song "The First Cut Is the Deepest," which I came to know thanks to the ever present knowledge of Tony that it was not originally written by Rod Stewart but by Cat Stevens.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think worldwide most people know the Rod Stewart song because it was a big hit. But I think it was a minor hit for Cat Stevens back in the late '60s.
yeah. So talking about big hits, the entire world took a big hit a few weeks ago.
How much bigger?
Okay, so the first story that we're talking about, the entire episode is about this primarily. So this is a New York Times story from the global health section. It is titled "Health Programs Shutter Around the World After Trump Pauses Foreign Aid," and we are talking about the pauses in foreign aid through USAID. So many global health programs funded by this are being shut down now, so which is concerning. And these programs are for research for the cure and treatment of diseases like tuberculosis, malaria, and HIV, which will drastically affect health situations in the rest of the world, Tony. So this is
Mm.
concerning. So I'll just let you state your peace of mind before I continue my notes.
Well, I think shut down is rather strong. I mean, certainly they are going to be under increasing scrutiny. I
Right.
mean, they're being shuttered, which means like the blinds are being drawn.
Mm.
Hopefully, it's a temporary measure then for those blinds to be re-pulled back up again. Now, I think this is one of a number of stories we're discussing of concern.
Right. So this will lead, this is projected to cause a halt in medical supplies reaching countries in need, and clinical trials in several regions will get affected. The State Department and USAID have not commented on the situation, and Marco Rubio has announced a waiver for life-saving humanitarian assistance,
Yeah.
but the clarity is lacking. So, I believe that medical research is going to be the most affected by most such things, and the impact is will be on countries which are non-US, that is Asia and with the Middle East and Africa. So, how would researchers need to react to such things? People not in the US, how would they need to react to this? As per your thought, Tony.
How would they react? Gosh, I
Or what
mean,
should they do? As in, should they be worried?
yeah, I work with concern. With concern, I mean lots of these programs, lots of these state US funded or funding agencies and departments fund international programs. And it does put a question mark into the future. So a lot of these programs.
Right. And
So should they stop applying? I don't think it's going to disappear overnight. And as you say, they're putting various markers around certain or protecting certain programs, life-saving programs.
right.
But no, I think it's good cause to be worried.
Right. And a related story, this is a sort of a direct consequence. So some of the federal databases were taken down. This is a measure to make the changes as as in relation to the executive orders from the Trump administrations. So these include, including CDC surveys, and the KFF is a think tank in medical research and publishing and everything. So this is their story. It is titled "A Look at Federal Health Data Taken Offline," and some data have come back online, but
Yeah,
without
yeah,
essential documentation that will help researchers use it. Now, this
Mm.
impacts again a range from public health research and generally health research in general, and there are concerns regarding health data or such resources being available in the future, which again puts into question what will researchers do when they're already working, especially in collaborative research projects involving different countries. I don't know what
Yeah,
to say. Hmm.
well, again, why they're taking these decisions, and I can understand why organisations like CDC and others had to temporarily take down those programs. You've got a presidential mandate, then you've got to do something about it. But I think all that's going to happen is going to shift the focus then away from the US to other countries where these programs will still continue.
Yeah.
With Europe, with Asia, yeah.
And in a related story, again, this is a Nature news story exclusive how NSF is scouring research grants for violations in Trump's order. So, again, we will tell you why people are sort of, I guess, revising and, things or looking over things is because the Trump administration has announced that DEI related research would not get funding. So, if suppose you have terms that represent like transgenders or gender related research, Trump administration wants to consider everything as binary, so it's male and female. And if suppose you have subjects including transgender or even mentions of such terms, then that may not get funding. So that's why the National Science Foundation, U.S. National Science Foundation, is reviewing all the grants, and it is reviewing projects to make sure that they're compliant. And this move is causing confusion, frustration among researchers, and there is a federal judge has temporarily blocked the funding freeze as well. So that's another sort of a positive thing, I guess, from a research point of view. So from what NSF is doing in terms of securing funding is good, but DEI efforts being sort of again taken out or redacted from the studies and research and everything, that's negative. But that's not the way the world is moving. But I guess these are all cyclical, and I guess Tony, you would think that these would change over the course of some.
They've got to change. I can't see how, how they can continue with these policies in the long term.
Right.
I mean, the world has changed.
Right.
Whether we like it, whether we accept it or not, the world has changed, and research has to reflect that.
Right, and in among all these negative sort of news stories, there's a sort of interesting worldview story published in Nature. It's called "Despair is Not an Option: How Scientists Can Help Protect Federal Research." So, I thought it was a nice sort of counterpoint to whatever we have just discussed. So it's about. The story talks about the article talks about the role of scientists in protecting federal research in the U.S. and that despair is not an option even under challenging conditions as such now, which is a very positive way to look at it. Now, the article discusses how government scientists have continued to serve the public, and it highlights the steps scientific communities should take during political shifts in terms of even guiding policy, which is, I thought, were a powerful statement. As in, we've talked about it in the context of Twitter and Blue Sky that scientists have some sort of a responsibility in shaping the discourse
Yeah.
in the world, and the author also highlights this. And so this the author's name is Gretchen T. Goldman. So she notes the progress in scientific integrity policies over the past decades is a positive thing, and it stresses the importance of protecting scientific integrity from political interference as such. Now, this is a very sort of, I guess, a utopian thing, but it's never real, right, Tony? It's scientific integrity to protect it from political interference is almost, it cannot happen. What do you think?
Well, gosh, I've grown up in an era where, in most cases, science is treated as an independent, non-political organisation. Certainly in the countries where I've lived,
Mm-hmm.
science shouldn't be held over as a bargaining chip. Science is science, research is research for the good of mankind. Regardless of the political direction of the government, they should be supporting research and supporting science.
Right, right. And a sort of, I guess, in an inflammatory heading. So, mind-boggling. It is another Nature News article.
It's a great word. I couldn't think of a better word. Why? Yeah,
Yeah,
it is mind-boggling.
yeah, it is mind-boggling. So, what is mind-boggling? The U.S. CDC ordering gender-related terms to cut from scientific papers. This is post-published papers, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, this move aligns with President Trump's order to recognize only two sexes or genders. The directive impacts researchers and publishers published manuscripts, Tony. Terms like gender, transgender, and non-binary are affected. In the sense, they have to be redacted. So first of all, I mean, we are as in our company and our brands, we are DEI. We are oriented towards DEI. The writing assistant Trinka offers inclusivity checks, including DEI checks.
I was going to say, if there's one positive thing about this, we have tools that if you have to remove these terms from the papers, we have a tool which will help you identify those terms and help you to identify where they are and remove them if needed.
Yeah, and
But I don't necessarily agree, but if you have to do it, make it easy for yourself to do it.
yeah, but what do you think about published papers needing to be corrected to for such terms to be removed?
I think it's a rocky road, a slippery road to go down. The fact that they're censoring, they're changing the stated record for political purposes is deeply worrying.
Right.
I mean, not the first time it's happened, but I'm sure, in the society that we live, that should be set in stone.
Right, and this is probably the most political among the stories. So, the Environmental Protection Agency has demoted career employees overseeing science enforcement and more. So, basically, the people who oversaw have been asked to assume lower positions, and a politically appointed person will now look at the environmental related science and other policies. Now, which is obviously this is not good, especially for environment related or climate change related research. So once again, my question to you: if you are an international researcher collaborating with, let's say, some sort of in some way with U.S. federal funding, should you change something?
I don't know what to say. I'm so baffled by the whole program. This is a natural conclusion. Is that if science is going to be censored, then the role of the scientists is also going to be undermined. So, would I change career? I don't think I would straight away. But if you've trained all your life to be a research scientist, and all of a sudden you find your career options starting to erode, you may be thinking about your future and your future career direction.
I think we might be talking about career options for PhD, the trends that we're observing in a future episode. But in terms of, changing in terms of how, if you are a PhD or if you're a scientist, if you are a researcher, how things will be affected in terms of cuts. This is probably the story that we titled the episode after. So this is from the Scholarly Kitchen. NIH cuts ICR, which is, I think, what is it? I forget this is indirect cost rates for research projects, and what are the implications for research institutions and scholarly publishing. So this is obviously from Scholarly Kitchen, so you get a deep, nice view about what's happening. So NIH has announced a cap on indirect cost rates at 15%, dropping from an average of 27%. So the impact would be that research universities and medical centers, who rely on NIH funding, will be affected. So what are indirect costs, Tony? They cover vital research support expenses like utilities and administrative staff. So as far as I know,
Travel.
yeah, travel as well. So I believe that if I mean, some of our clients are from the US and they would use some of our services utilizing such indirect costs that would get then be invoiced. So I think they are going to be affected. And what they're predicting, which is very interesting, I thought, was that there could be a short-term increase in submissions, but a long-term decrease in submissions, which is interesting from the point of view that because of these cuts, there'll be more time for researchers to publish their research right now. But in terms of future, there may be less and less output because they don't have the
Because there'll
support.
be less and less funded research out there. Yeah.
Yes, and eventually it could lead to at least the article proposes that could lead to fewer grant applications, impacting research output and innovation. So this,
Yeah.
I think we have covered about 8 stories. This sort of captures almost everything that has happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks in terms of research and US government related policies. I'm
Yeah.
concerned. We are concerned, Tony. And if for those who are interested, I mean, we offer some consultation services in terms of how to procure your fundings and everything. If suppose you're interested, you can get in touch with us. Any other thoughts, Tony, on these?
No, if you subscribe to Nature, there was a good article in Nature, I think it was last week, about the impact of Trump's policies on science and on research, which you should dig out if you can. No, I've got nothing. I'm kind of stumped as to why this is happening. It seemed to be such a retrograde step. But it is what it is, and science doesn't stop just because one government is changing its policies or adapting its policies, because those policies will change in the future again, I'm sure.
Yeah, with that positive thought, we will move on to our quick hit. So there are 3 or 4 quick hits. So the first one is a very interesting, from at least from a clinical medicine point of view. It's a press release. Elsevier and the American College of Cardiology expand 40-year partnership to support clinician access to evidence-based
Yeah,
guidelines at the
yeah,
point of care. So this is a collaboration between Elsevier Health and
yeah.
the thing that we're talking about is clinical key AI, which I believe, Tony, it's been around for about more than a decade.
Well,
Uh,
clinical key's been around for a while as a decision support resource for clinicians. Yeah,
yes,
clinical key AI. I'm not sure how long that's been available
and
for.
so clinical key AI uses artificial intelligence to help clinicians quickly access evidence-based medical knowledge. Is very important, as in, I've been taught on treating patients according to evidence that has been published,
Yeah.
and it's, if there's an AI tool that helps, it is obviously a good thing. And this is one of the more promising applications of AI in terms of real world applications. I thought, Tony, I'm very happy that this sort of a thing is happening. Any other thoughts on this?
I suppose the only thought of this was the guidelines from some of these large medical societies are fundamental for practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that, why has it taken this long for these guidelines to be integrated into clinical key,
Well, that
and or
yes.
into these sort of decisions, not specifically clinical key, but into decision support products like this. And I think the use of AI,
Mm.
more to answer your question, is it's a very, very good step, because we've both seen in firsthand how good certain AI tools can be in terms of summarizing actions and summarizing large amounts of content. So no, I think this is going to be a great boost for researchers, for clinicians.
Right, another news story related to Elsevier. Dutch research institutions and Elsevier announced new agreements. Another transformative agreement story. So this starts in January of 2025 and lasts 2 years with a possible third year. And it offers 100% open access publishing for participating institutions, and it provides access to Elsevier's journals and the Scopus database.
Yeah.
Aims to enhance privacy, AI, and data mining transparency. So 66 Dutch research institutions are involved, which is good news, as in relatively small in terms of scope, but still yet another transformative agreement, Tony.
Yeah, relatively small in terms of scope if you compare it to
Mm.
the one nation, one system
Yeah.
deal in India. But I think again, I think we talked about a previous episode, my predictions for 2025, and these read and publish deals, read and publish agreements are absolutely going to continue and blossom. And this is just another example of I think this is a renewal of an existing deal that's changed to be much more open.
And finally, Tony, a story that you are in some way directly related to. So
Very indirectly. This goes back years.
yeah. So this is a new story from Nature. It is titled "Pioneering CERN Scheme Will Pay Publishers More If They Hit Open Science Targets." Now
Yeah,
that's a, I don't
yeah,
know, I don't know if it's a nice story as in title in terms of incentivizing, but basically CERN is offering financial incentives to publishers for open science practices. The
yeah.
initiative is called Open Science Mechanism. It builds on the success of SCOAP3, Scope 3. How do you pronounce?
Scope 3.
Scope 3, yeah, which is what Tony was, I guess, indirectly or directly involved in, supporting open access publishing. And Scope 3 involves libraries and organizations funding open publication. So this is the older story back from September 2012, where the story was titled "Open Access Deal for Particle
Listen,
Physics."
and it goes further back than that, because when I worked in physics publishing, these conversations had already started a good couple of years before this article was published. So this is maybe 15 years. This has been on the table,
Right. So this Scope 3 consortium played a key role in negotiating with 12 journals.
and it's
Nine
more now.
Yeah, 90% of the high energy physics papers from 2014 onwards for open access. So interesting. So this is the CERN story is another sort of step in that direction, I would say, and that.
Well, I think what CERN has demonstrated is the positive use of well, first of all, the importance of regional collaboration. This is an EU program, effectively. CERN is largely funded by the European Union. And what they wanted to say was, and high energy physics and areas like high energy physics, cosmology, all these energy areas which is studied at CERN, they were just concerned that researchers there and researchers around the world were struggling to get access to the research that they needed, and to publish when they needed it to be published, and so agreed with the leading high energy physics publishers to make every one of their make those core journals available to anyone that needed it with scope support and scope funding.
Yeah, and I would have to mention this, Tony. We've talked about the three body problem series back in some of the other episodes, but one of the main plot points is that in the novel and in the TV series, the scientists in high energy particle physics communicate with each other and discover some things that do not make sense to them, and that leads to eventually things changing and
Yeah,
evolving. So it's an important so sharing information, especially these kind of what time sensitive research information is especially important in these fields, and apart from obviously
yeah.
medicine, so open access is important from that point of view.
And if you're going to ask me, is the Scope 3 deal indicative of other types of deals? I would say probably no, unfortunately, because there are very few organisations in the world with the kind of reach and funding and
Right.
power that CERN has in other subject areas.
Right.
It may happen in other subjects, but I think it's a challenge.
Right, right. And finally, a final story that we have is the British Library selects Clarivate to provide library services and discovery platforms. Something which has a personal sort of relevance to me, because I used to have a British Council library, physical library membership, until the time British Library moved out of Bombay, which is where I live. I still have the virtual access, and that's how I got to access things like the academic the journals through the access that British Library provided. And we are talking about something, Clarivate being the partner for British Library, such academic journal access. So the British Library will use Alma, Primo V, and Rapido. So these are Alma would be the analytics platform, and Primo would be the discovery platform, and Rapido would be the research dissemination or the library content to be shared kind of platform. So excellent news, Tony. You were in our conversation before we started recording this. You were surprised that it is so widely used. Do you have a British Library membership? And
I did. I don't anymore. When I lived in London, I used to go to the British Library quite a lot. So it's a wonderful, wonderful, important global resource. I still call it the new library, even though they've been in there 20 years, wherever it is. It's a fantastic place for research.
yeah, that's where I used to learn about all the newspapers and tabloids and magazines, music, hi-fi, what hi-fi and everything were available at that point. And that's how I, as a little boy in Trivandrum, which is the capital of Kerala, I used to go every Saturday and spend a lot of time. Have fond memories. But I'm very happy that Clarivate, Clarivate's technology is now powering the British Library's
Yeah, yeah.
library.
I can't remember the company, but Clarivate acquired a library management system some years ago. I can't remember who it was. So this is well, congratulations to them for having such an important partner.
All
And
right.
they say the British Library will be the 43rd national and state library to adopt the product. So they've clearly got a carved out a niche for themselves for national and state libraries. So well done.
All right. So that brings us to the end of our episode. So Tony, what are you reading? Because we are talking about libraries. Are you reading anything interesting?
At the moment, I'm reading a biography of an Irish rock band from the 1970s called Horselips.
Wow. Tell us more about it whenever you finish reading it, whatever your short.
I tell you, it's so niche. I'm not sure I'm interested, but I will. I'll do my best to summarize it when I finished it.
Yes, yes. So if somebody wants to listen to your summaries of the books that you read, where can they find you, Tony?
They'll have to write to me. I don't publish my thoughts anywhere. I have been asked to do this, but I've never done it. So, but if you need to find contact either KK or me, we're both on LinkedIn, or you can contact me directly at tonyo@anago.com.
All right. And as Tony mentioned at the start of the episode, we publish live on YouTube and on LinkedIn most episodes. But if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon. And if suppose some of the stories resonate with you or some of the things that Tony and I discuss resonate with you, maybe you can share it with your friends or colleagues and let us know what you would like us to talk about it. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
we'll do our best. And thanks to everybody who has already written in, and we have tried to include your thoughts and your suggestions in our episodes. So with that, we come to the end of PubShorts episode 37. The first cut is the deepest, but hopefully there'll be less cuts in the future. And Tony, with that, we'll say goodbye to everyone. And on behalf of everyone, we will see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
Yeah. Bye bye. See you, everyone.